Global capability centers is the new buzzword among the business fraternity nowadays. Their count is increasing at a rapid pace in India, with the centers undergoing more and more evolution every other day. It is expected that GCCs in India will bring up to 2 lakh jobs in the financial year 2022. We bring you the Economic Times GCC Transformation Series powered by Thomson Reuters. Here's a glimpse of the roundtable conference and excerpts from the thoughts shared by the industry leaders.
Thanks and a very good morning to everyone. Thanks for braving Bangalore traffic and coming here in person at this hour. Welcome all of you to the Economic Times India Leadership Council. I don't have to tell you about captives and the industry's growth and how India has taken a sort of a leadership position when it comes to global, captive capability centers. But nevertheless, just to set some context, I think a few decades back when the IT industry was just taking shape, people realized there's a lot of work that can be done out of India. And that's when we saw the captives industry sort of taking shape, where global MNCs started getting some work done out of India. It was maybe out of the cost advantage or the sheer fact that there was a lot of talent. And fast forward many decades, I think the role that captives are playing is changed tremendously. They are not just doing work for the MNCs, but are also sort of playing a key role in the innovation. I think products are being conceived here, developed here, and going forward, I think it's just going to go. India's role is just going to increase. The reason why we thought, that it'll be a good idea to get all of you together was to just kind of talk a little bit about, what are the challenges in the industry. What is it that India and the industry and companies like yours can do so that India further moves up the value chain. So I'll just kick off by, leaving it to Vishal to give some context of Thomson Reuters, and then we can probably hear from everybody. This discussion is going to be, not very structured, so please feel free to add your thoughts and raise hands and, question, cross-question, give your comments. So Vishal, over to you.
Thank you, Surbhi. One thing which actually shocked me quite a bit was in terms of the knowledge-based processes, right? And I'm a chartered accountant. In my early days, we used to file sales tax returns and let alone kind of, filing sales tax returns for one state, it was in Mumbai, so Maharashtra, to actually file returns for other states was hard enough, forget countries. And I think that's the biggest shift I've seen in terms of, as I've worked with Thomson Reuters and worked with a lot of organizations like yourselves, we've seen organizations pretty much centralize and automate these knowledge-based processes, right? And knowledge-based processes like tax, stat reporting, even from a point of view of just sales tax returns, but also kind of your last mile statutory reporting globally for 50 plus countries, and at the same time kind of things like classification of your goods when they're imported into Africa or when they're imported into Australia, and all of those things have been managed in centralized centers of excellence. And I think that's kind of the wave which I feel the most excited about, and that's where in some ways Thomson Reuters comes in, and what we've seen, right, is that what I've seen Thomson Reuters do is kind of, in my parlance back in my CA days, was automate the unautomatable, because tax was something which I never ever dreamed that you could actually centralize in one location, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. It continues to go down, as I mentioned, in stat reporting, supply chain, and the like. And I feel the change is that they're doing, organizations we support are doing this not through local consultants, but through what I call it consultant on a cloud, right? And I think that's a term we feel very passionate about, because we have roughly 2,000 CAs, lawyers on our roles who are constantly updating this content and putting it on the cloud for our customers to kind of serve. And I feel that's where that's just one of those shifts of that content-driven technology and kind of knowledge-based services which Thomson Reuters offers, which is why we wanted to kind of understand from this audience here, what is their view in terms of the next generation of shared service centers. And I feel, the landscape has shifted dramatically, right? One last kind of point I wanted to make in terms of why suddenly we are at Thomson Reuters so excited about this, because I feel like in the past there was we used to sell into kind of the HQs. The HQ used to make the decision, and suddenly we find that we have users in Bangalore, we have users in. I remember one of our CEOs mentioning that 10 years ago when we did our user count, roughly 70% of our users were in the Asia region. And we were shocked, right? That was I think the first revelation at that point. But nothing much happened in that period. But I think the reason why things are getting very exciting now is the profile I see on this table, right? And it's very, very senior leaders. Some of the things which Pradeep will possibly touch on is in terms of how we are upskilling our shared service centers and our we don't even call it that anymore, but globally that's a term that's used. But how we are upskilling and how we have very senior decision makers here. And I feel like that's where the organizations like yourselves are looking to the GCCs to kind of actually drive innovation, drive the way forward. And I feel that's where we are excited about being in the midst of that excitement and that innovation hub to start seeing how we could potentially drive value as well. So with that, Surabhi, I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure. So thanks, Vishal, for that great introduction. I'll maybe start by asking the first question to Lalita. You mentioned that there's a new IKEA that is in the making, right? And the India Center is 2 years old. So could you talk a little bit about the role that India will play in this new IKEA, and what is the kind of work that will happen out of the center?
So we also have a very strong location strategy as far as the global business operations is concerned. We, as I said, we have a hub in Europe, China, and US, and anything that has to do with more very customer centric. We besides other processes, we also support customer fulfillment, quite a few other things. So anything that has very strong business centric proximity that is required, that happens in the regional hubs. Language dependencies predominantly happens out of European and China centers for us. India that's a very specific reason why we call India as the global hub. Very similar to what Prithvi is saying in terms of it's about of course India is one place where we see the tech and processes coming together. And it's a very important market, even from a retail perspective for us. As you know, IKEA is growing in India, opening more and more stores. And if you want to really reach many of the more people, India is a big market as well, right? So basically from a market perspective and from all perspective. So India is going to be a digital hub as well for IKEA, as well as global business operations, which is the processes. Trying to put these two things under the same roof, we feel a lot of synergies that can be achieved.
We've spoken about costs and how that's no longer a driver, and the number of people, sheer number, youth, vibrancy, ideas, etc. But we're also forgetting the range of talent we have in India, right? You can have an engineering hub, automation, accountants, lawyers. That range I don't think is available in any other country or any other. So we have a hub and spokes model that we are implementing now, with India being the hub and spokes in Gdansk and Manila, etc. I see a clear advantage there, and we probably need to showcase that versus the cost as well. And
so I think in terms of the discussion we are having, it is evolving from purely a cost play to a value play. I think people are open to the discussion, but it also depends on how much our leaders bring that to the table. I think there's also a realization that we have to invest in strong leadership on the ground in India, because as we grow our teams here, they cannot be effective without good leaders and strong leaders. Also, while we have a seat at the table, I think the voice at the table is also now becoming stronger and richer. So I think it's heading in the right direction, but long ways to go.
It's a common misbelief that automation takes away jobs. Right, so in the West or in the other countries where the jobs are probably scarce and there is a fear of automation, but what we see in Indian market is Indian talent is the first one to put their hand up and say, yes, we would want to learn, yes, we would want to do it, because they know that it will add value to their profile. And if not this organization, the minute they walk out with a new skill, there are many more companies who would adopt and take this, the experience what they built elsewhere. So the adoption of automation or AI or whatever it is, I would say is much stronger in the Indian market.
One of the advantage of being in India is the supply side of talent is volume is there, and we have this herd mentality sometimes, which is good, which will catch up very soon. RPA is a good example. So that gap of talent, by virtue of our volumes in India, will catch up. That's not my biggest concern. Agree that we need to invest in talent. We need to really make it work. I think the key missing point is leadership. You touched base on that. As leaders in this industry, are we changing the dialogue on the boardroom?
I think earlier focus was always do something faster, cheaper, better. But now when I look at the most of the customers or my partners, what they're demanding is have end-to-end focus. So as a result, what I see is that focus is not only what's in my control, but I need to look at the processes where large portion are lying with the business. And when you start looking at end-to-end, this also means you have to look at the complete ecosystem. So you have to look at your supplier base, your customer base, statutory authorities, and hence develop a solution which can create interface with all of them. So as a result, what we are seeing is that it's not only becoming a something like your own technology which you can use, but also how you develop an ecosystem of suppliers.
Over the last sort of decade, and what was also discussed during the roundtable was the fact that there was a lot of transactional work which was done. There was cost arbitrage, labor arbitrage, which became a big factor, which drove a lot of the conversations of setting up GCCs in India or Southeast Asia for that matter. I think that conversation and narrative has changed, and what's been accelerated by the silver lining of the pandemic is that you can actually work from anywhere. And what that's done is that from being seen as a back office, India being a back office over the the 90s, the 2000s, etc., is now being seen as the backbone of the organization, and I think that's a big change that's taken place. And from just picking up from the conversation over here, as well as client conversations that we're having, we see a trend which is going to continue at least for the next decade. Given the talent pool that India has, the access that we have, that we're in a good position to make sure we capitalize on it as we go forward.
One aspect in Bosch which we started is the accountant of the future and the control of the future. Now, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that we need to be Java programmers. See, I was reading this book from CFO Niti, where the Amazon CFO says that 8 years back, he wanted CAs who knows SQL. Yeah, and now when I was reading this book, I realized that how true it is, because if we are not able to give the business insights to our to our businesses, then this question of value addition, value driver, this is actually of then it comes back to the cost. We are saying cost is not important, but when I sit with the CFOs of the legal entities, they tell me that what exactly are you doing apart from the normal delivery. Yeah, of course there are a lot of important requirements in the local gap, schedule 3 changes, etc. Yeah. The important point here is, as leadership, are we focusing on driving this accountant of the future and control of the future? So their accountants have to know Power BI. I heard this term. They should know how to create dashboards, how to extract data from SAP, how to put this in a flash of a second in front of the management and say, look, this is how the sales is going up. This is how it's going down, customer-wise, business-wise. I think this is what we are missing today. We have the industry knowledge, I think Naveen mentioned, which is definitely will keep sustaining the GSCs for a long time, because nobody knows the industry the way we know. We are qualified, we have experience. The problem is that we are not able to add the technology very quickly into the topic which we need to do. So as leaders, I think we have to push this topic more. It is not about just creating GCCs and then doing work for the various geographies. I think it's more to do how do we add value now, in the next level. Yeah.
Right. So, talking about technology, like you mentioned, I think some of you have also talked about how every organization needs to become a technology company. Coming to you, Karan, I just want to understand that you've worked across many companies. What is the challenge that companies face while adopting technology? Everybody wants to adopt the latest technologies, but what are the on-ground challenges, or what are the dominant sort of roadblocks in when it comes to adopting technologies?
Yeah, and there are a lot of folks over here who are going through on a daily basis, but I think the sharing will stop when you start poaching talent from each other over here. I think that's an area which needs to be developed.
That is a reality which we can't move.
Exactly.
I have people going somewhere else, and there are people coming, and that's the way life is.
And that's they're driving the market, right? Not the
Exactly.
Just to kind of mention on that, what is our employee value prop becomes a very key part, and I think we have to spend time thinking of that, which honestly we don't as leaders, and that's what makes our employees leave. So we are all the time. This talent is transient, and each has 5 offers, right? So besides going somewhere else, he's got 4 other offers in the pocket.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
reality.
It's like one of the CEOs, one of the I can't name him. One of the top 5 IT company CEOs told me that we only ask people what they want when they leave.
Absolutely.
And that narrative has to change. We have to keep asking them, are they happy? What they need? Are they, what can we do to build their skills to make them relevant?
No, when we talk about technology changes, especially for a company like ours, there are 2 aspects to it. There is the technology advancements and the trends that goes into our products, because we are a technology company ourselves, selling technology products to our customers. And then there's all the internal process automation and those kinds of aspects. So there's product related and internal process related. And I think your question might have been more to the latter. There, I think truly there are a number of trends that have taken over in the industry in terms of rapid process automation and bots and virtual chat agents and so on, AI-based chat with customers and such. So I truly believe our centers, our shared service centers, should lead those kinds of activities and those functions for the entire company.
When you look at automation, the automation definition in context of business is very important. So today when we talk about automation, whether it is, with respect to the business outcome that we are talking about, a lot of time earlier it was all being seen with respect to people, that how are we automating and not counting people versus, the outcome from there. But now it is also about the outcome in terms of technology enhancement. So a lot of activity that human does not do or human cannot do when we talk about NLPs or when we talk about AI ML. So this is where the automation is playing the role beyond just replacing the headcount per se. So I think in automation today's context is way beyond the way it has been before. Now it is all about, let's say, changing the perspective where the business outcomes are being driven through these automation.
Earlier the GCCs was more looked as a transactional hubs. I think now the GCCs are looked at more end-to-end. And also, as we were discussing in the roundtable, it's also about how we can, manage the knowledge-based services like statutory reporting, tax, financial planning and analysis. So these are the few things which we've already added. At least for Bosch India, I'm responsible not only for the entire record to report function, but also for the financial planning and analysis. So. Which is just started. We have started a hub for the reporting and controlling activities. So I think there is a big shift, and the shift is also in terms of what kind of capabilities we need. So we just don't need people who can do some transactions. We need people who are not only qualified, but also who knows some technology.
A couple of changes in terms of automation and digitization opportunity. I think what we have to see here is which is the right fit, which is the right application that would fit our requirement today's. I would always say that first we would compete with ourselves, what's the existing benchmark we have, and then compete with the market. So that's our way of doing things. The very first thing on the automation and the aerospace industries that I came from was how do we lean the process? Leaning the process means eliminating the need of manual interventions to the process. So that's where it drives. It could be anything. It could be macro, it could be robotics, it would be system optimization, building a controls on your system. So understanding where we are today, what helps us from the existing market and how we cater to the market competition is a key for us to the Weatherford. and also we believe in being an athlete role. An athlete is good fit for any situation. So we see ourselves as an athlete, as and when the challenges come across, how do we cater to those? Picking up the applications that are into the market. So that's where our theme is.
I think for India-based GCCs, one of the unique advantages we have is the fact that the access to talent pool is immense. But at the same time, that's also posing a challenge because there's a massive fight for talent. And how do we as GCCs keep increasing the supply is probably the only way for it to be sustainable.
I think the one biggest change that I'm seeing is that it's no more about outsourcing or giving work to the shared services for the basic transactional kind of work. It's complete package, right? The most complex, the entire value chain is being handed over to the shared services to work upon. And that's a paradigm shift because it's like the shared services are actually running the business, right? And of course, we cannot not mention about the role which technology, automation, digitization, which is the change that it is bringing into the work culture. That's now it's like a thread in the beads. It's just ingrained in the culture, the technology which has finally come in, which we have to accept. But yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just the entire businesses are being run by shared services, not just some piecemeal work in terms of transactional work, which was the case earlier.
Today, it is not just the role of the IT, right? So everybody if you talk about, the next generation GCC, so that's when everybody has some ownership on the technology and has a role to play in identifying, scouting, implementing, and then operationalizing those technologies. I think today is a world where every bit adds to the ocean. It's not about a huge technology transformation. It's not about waiting for 5 years. It's about result. What is the need for me today, and how can I get it done in the next few weeks.
I think that ecosystem, right, of a user group which is actually using your solution, and also kind of having the engineering team, the product team, all of them coexist in one location, offers a lot of advantage from a go-to-market perspective, from a business perspective. I find that to be extremely advantageous for my own team, right, to actually sit and understand how the solution is leveraged. It's like I was just talking earlier that we sell a car, but till you don't drive it, right, or till you at least don't get the view of the driver, you never understand how the car's been used. And I think that's really what we try to do, and kind of enhance that communication and take advantage of the fact that we have a lot of folks in the country, in Bangalore, who actually not only use but also actually develop the product and do the engineering for it.